What did Meghan Markle say that made King Charles slam the palace doors and Prince William sever all contact, forever? Not metaphorically, literally, as one stunned aide put it. You could hear the echo of that slammed door all the way to Windsor. Before we continue, please hit the like button, subscribe to the channel, and turn on the notification bell for updates. And that was just the beginning. Because just days after what insiders are calling her most arrogant request yet, Meghan Markle found herself at the center of a royal firestorm, one that left no room for forgiveness, no path to reconciliation, and no mercy from two of the most powerful men in the monarchy. You might think you've heard it all. The Oprah interview, the Spotify snub, the Netflix betrayal. But this was personal. Because Meghan didn't just ask to come back into the royal fold, she demanded it. She wanted a new title, a clarification of her royal status. She framed it as a branding issue, a legal technicality. But make no mistake, to King Charles and Prince William, it was a calculated insult, wrapped in PR speak and weaponized charm. And the moment they heard her request, they didn't hesitate. They banned her. Officially. Permanently. No more contact. No more olive branches. No more games. But before we get to the moment that letter was hand-delivered to Montecito, let's rewind. Because this story didn't begin with Meghan's demand, it began with a pattern. A trail of provocations. Quiet moves made behind palace gates. Leaks to the press. And finally, a bold maneuver that backfired so spectacularly, it left even the Queen consort speechless. You see, when Meghan Markle first joined the royal family, she was hailed as a modern breath of fresh air. A feminist, an actress, a humanitarian. But somewhere along the way, that fairy tale fractured. Now, she's being described by palace insiders as a liability, a rogue element, and worse, a dangerous wild card who underestimates the crown. But what really pushed King Charles and Prince William over the edge? It wasn't the Netflix documentary. It wasn't the memoir. It wasn't even the paparazzi drama in New York. It was the timing. Because Meghan's request for a new royal title came just weeks after Charles was rumored to be undergoing medical tests. As he faced the kind of pressure that could break even a monarch, Meghan struck, choosing the worst possible moment to reassert herself into royal affairs. And what she asked for, it wasn't just inappropriate. According to those close to the king, it was offensive. But here's the twist. Meghan didn't expect resistance. She believed, genuinely, that the timing was right. That public sentiment had softened. That Harry's family might finally see her side. What she didn't see coming was Prince William. Because while Charles may still hold the crown, it's William who's now holding the line. And insiders say he has no patience left for his brother's wife. Not after the late Queen's final wishes. Not after the alleged phone call that Harry hung up on. And certainly not after the leak involving Meghan's new branding strategy. Something William took as a direct threat to the integrity of the crown. So what was in Meghan's request? Sources say it was framed innocently. A legal request for a reclassification. A clarification of the public's confusion around her current title. But behind the scenes, it was something far more aggressive. A request to be formally addressed as Princess Meghan, or, in some variations, Princess Henry. As per an old royal naming custom, she allegedly cited through her legal representatives. And when this landed on the king's desk, all hell broke loose. The king reportedly turned pale, then red with anger. He set the letter aside without finishing it. When his private secretary gently asked if it required a response, Charles allegedly said one word: burn it. But William wasn't so subtle. He called an emergency meeting. Not with palace advisors. Not with PR handlers. With security. That's right, security. Because according to one bombshell leak, William feared that Meghan's persistence wasn't just a PR stunt. It was a strategic push to destabilize the monarchy's image, particularly in the United States, where her media empire was quietly being rebuilt. This wasn't about a title. This was about control. So the two most senior royals alive, king and heir, made a decision. Not only would Meghan's request be denied, it would be used as the final justification to cut her off. Entirely. No contact. No protection. No involvement. Not even Harry's pleas would change that. And yes, Harry pleaded. Quietly. Desperately. But we'll get to that in Chapter 7. Right now, you're probably wondering, why now? Why did Meghan risk it? Why press for something so bold when her approval rating in the UK remains at an all-time low? Why challenge the crown at a time of so much public scrutiny? The answer lies in Montecito and in a Netflix boardroom. Because Meghan's rebranding plan, according to leaked internal documents, was already in motion. A new series, a new lifestyle brand. A cookbook, yes, but also something bigger. With love, Meghan was only the beginning. To make it work, she needed something more. Something official. Something regal. She needed validation. And so, the request was sent. But what she didn't expect was what came next. Because the letter she received in response was more than a denial. It was a declaration. A final, damning statement co-signed by both Charles and William that effectively removed Meghan from any remaining royal privilege or access. Not just symbolic, not just emotional, but legally and politically binding. The royal family, for the first time in modern history, had officially severed all direct ties with one of its own, and not even blood could restore it. This wasn't exile. This was obliteration. And as one former courtier put it, it's as if she never existed. So what's next for Meghan Markle? Is this the final act of the royal drama, or just the beginning of a new war? How will Harry respond when the woman he loves is permanently shut out from his birthright? And what about their children, Archie and Lilibet, who now face a royal identity crisis of their own? We'll uncover it all. Every letter, every whisper, every explosive moment from inside the palace gates and behind Montecito's hedged walls. Because what's about to unfold over the next 60 minutes is a story of ambition, rejection, betrayal, and power. And it all started with one email and ended with total royal annihilation. But just when Meghan thought the silence meant surrender, she received a letter. Not a warm invitation, not an apology, not even a phone call. A letter, sealed with the royal crest, stamped with 2 signatures. And inside, just 3 words. No contact. Ever. But what did it say between the lines? Who wrote the original draft? And why is Princess and now being pulled into the mix? That's exactly where we begin. She thought it would be a formality. It turned out to be her greatest mistake. That's what one palace staffer whispered, shaking her head as she slid the envelope across the king's desk. A request. Simple, direct, coldly polite, sent through legal channels, not family ones. And that's where it all began. Not with a scream. Not with a confrontation, but with a letter. A formal, typed request from Meghan Markle's legal team, addressed to the office of the sovereign, stamped with embossed parchment, and sealed in layers of controlled language designed to sound harmless, but felt like a bomb. And inside, a line that changed everything. The Duchess respectfully requests consideration for updated usage of royal styling in ongoing global engagements, as aligned with her status as wife of Prince Henry. Let that sink in. Not former royal. Not independent duchess. But a subtle, lawyer-laced demand for recognition. For elevation. For legitimacy. She didn't want to just be Meghan Markle anymore. She wanted to be Princess Henry. A throwback title, yes, but one with weight. One with royal heritage. One that would slide easily into the headlines, product lines, and Netflix credits. And to the crown, that wasn't a name. It was a threat. Because behind that request wasn't just a woman trying to define herself. It was a woman trying to rewrite history. A history stained with scandal, with resignation, with betrayal. And now she wanted to walk back into the frame, wearing a new label. So here's the real question. What made her believe the answer would be yes? Some insiders say Meghan believed enough time had passed, that the drama had died down, that, post-Camilla coronation and Harry's memoir, the public appetite for royal conflict was waning, and so the family would soften. She was wrong. Because just as her request landed at Buckingham, something else was brewing. Quietly, viciously, behind the scenes. William had been watching, and he was done playing nice. What Meghan didn't know was that William had already intercepted an earlier communication. A prelude to the formal request. A tip-off from a mutual acquaintance that Meghan was preparing a re-entry strategy. The phrasing was chilling. Re-entry, like she'd left orbit, but planned to return, shinier, smarter. Untouchable. William's response. Absolutely not. He didn't just disagree. He escalated. He summoned his father, not as heir, but as protector of the monarchy's core values. Because to William, this wasn't just about one title. It was about the message it would send. If Meghan could walk away, monetize the monarchy, torch it in interviews and films, and still come back and ask for a title, then what did the crown even mean anymore? This wasn't a branding issue. This was a battle for the soul of the monarchy. And in William's eyes, Meghan had already made her choice, and it wasn't the crown. She had chosen the cameras. She had chosen California. She had chosen herself. So when her legal team tried to claim that Meghan was merely seeking clarity on her ongoing status as a member of the royal family by marriage, the reaction was swift and brutal. King Charles took one look at the wording and reportedly said, "If she needs clarity, she'll find it in silence." But it didn't stop there. Because as the king sat brooding in his private quarters, reflecting on everything from the Queen's funeral to the Sussex's Oprah sit-down, William went further. He pulled up archived footage, emails, even internal memos from the days leading up to Megxit. He wanted proof, not of wrongdoing, but of intention. He was building a case. Because in William's mind, the monarchy couldn't afford another scandal. Another compromise. Another slow PR leak bleeding out into the tabloids. We shut the door once. We left it unlocked. She tried to sneak back in. This time we bolted. That's what he told a longtime advisor. So together, Charles and William composed their response. Only, they didn't call it a response. They called it a finality. And as that letter was typed, reviewed, signed, and sealed, another move was happening behind the scenes, one Meghan didn't anticipate. The palace lawyers began preparing a public clarification, not just an internal denial. A statement, something royal watchers hadn't seen in years, a direct, sharp rebuke of a royal spouse. Because they knew what was coming. They knew Meghan would play the victim card. They knew she would spin the narrative. All I asked for was clarity. All I wanted was respect. Why are they silencing me again? So Charles decided to beat her to it. But before the public saw anything, Meghan did. And that's when the real tension began. Because the moment her assistant opened the envelope and gasped, Meghan knew it wasn't good news. But it was worse than that. It wasn't a no. It was a ban. No contact. No titles. No access. No correspondence. No meetings. No formal inclusion in royal diaries. No mentions in official documents. No ceremonial invitations. And worst of all, no discussions about the children. The ban was total, unforgiving, legally binding. She was now an outsider. Not just by geography, but by decree. And the message, according to a palace aide, was crafted to sting. Because Charles and William weren't just rejecting Meghan's request. They were rejecting her. Her presence. Her influence. Her ambition. They were cutting her off, not out of spite, but out of self-preservation. Because let's face it, how many more leaks could the palace survive? How many more insider stories about Catherine? How many more documentaries about pain and trauma? How many more headlines dragging the royal family through American talk shows, while Meghan smiled next to billionaires and claimed freedom? To the crown, this wasn't diplomacy anymore. This was war. And Meghan? She'd crossed a line that couldn't be uncrossed. But here's the twist. Meghan didn't flinch. At least, not in public. Not at first. Inside sources say she read the letter 3 times, folded it, tucked it into a folder labeled personal, then calmly told her team, "We'll respond in our own way." But what did she mean by that? What did Meghan have planned? Because less than 48 hours later, her team contacted Netflix. Not to complain, not to vent, to pitch a brand new concept. Something bold, emotional, provocative. Surviving the Crown, My Truth. That was the working title. A one-woman storytelling project. Candid, raw, unfiltered. But before anything could be finalized, something unexpected happened. An old name reappeared on the royal call logs. Someone who had stayed quiet for too long. Someone who had everything to lose and finally chose to speak. And what she revealed about Meghan's request, her real intentions, and what happened before the wedding would send shockwaves across the monarchy. Because Meghan may have started this fire, but someone else was ready to throw gasoline on it. And that person? Well, you know her name. But what she had to say would leave Meghan's entire narrative in ashes. And that's exactly what we're about to uncover. He didn't shout. He didn't throw anything. And that's how everyone knew it was serious. Have you ever seen someone so angry they go completely silent? That was Prince William in the hours after Meghan's request landed. No raised voice. No dramatic gestures. Just a stillness that made seasoned palace staff uneasy. The kind of quiet that doesn't ask for attention, it commands it. Because when William goes quiet, decisions are already being made. Behind the thick stone walls of Kensington Palace, long before the tabloids caught wind of anything, William had reached a breaking point. Not the kind fueled by one incident, but the kind built over years. Brick by brick, slight by slight, betrayal by betrayal. And Meghan's request for a new title? That wasn't the cause. It was the confirmation. The proof he'd been waiting for that nothing had changed. That all the apologies, all the healing language, all the carefully worded statements about moving forward were just that. Words. Empty ones. Because to William, the request didn't read like confusion. It read like entitlement. And entitlement, in his world, is dangerous.